I mean, it may not be a death penalty case because it's not premeditated murder, so, but still, it's happened before. There was a case where a police officer was in a park and there was a homeless guy who was scared. He was probably mentally deranged, and he ran for his life, and the cop took his gun out and shot him in the back, and they actually gave the death penalty to the cop. And the cop was put on death row. This case is not premeditated, but it certainly could be a case like that. That was pepper. That should have been pepper spray and maybe stun gun. So just a stun gun on the guy because he didn't have legs, and they gunned him down on the street. It's just, I know the guy had a butcher knife, but there's people walking around with sidearms everywhere, and a butcher knife is not a sidearm. And with the right patience and the right team, psychological team that could come out there, could have been a standoff that may have went on for 30 minutes to an hour, and that man that had no legs would have been worn out and would have been forced to drop the knife. They responded in a very rash way. Now, to message to Biden, I'm upset with Biden, is that if we don't do anything radical against the police, and I know it's horrible to say, then, we can't control the situation when they're acting like gang members. We already know they're acting like that. So the only option is to be more, I don't know. I don't know all the vernaculars, like casting a spell, these vernaculars. But we have to be more stern, not just dismiss them from the line of duty. And if they're not afraid of prison, because there's so many of them going to prison, then we just need to disarm them. I mean, I don't see any other option. I mean, eventually. I mean, we still need a SWAT. In this case of a standoff, the SWAT would be called. There'd be a person leading the SWAT. There'd be a psychologist on duty. There'd be a negotiater. The man has no legs. He's a crippled. He's, he was either living on the street, begging for his life. He could have been being robbed by somebody. The incident that happened with the knife that was prior could have been something that he was mentally ill. You don't just go around shooting mentally ill people. Which is, if that's going to happen, then what's going to end up happening is a possible impeachment of Biden for not keeping his word on police reform. And police reform has gotten, where Biden's not doing anything, or at least a sit-down talk with Biden to reason with law enforcement. We look back at 1945, 1940s of Germany. We need to look back at the Gestapo. We look at behavior and policing, and I think a disarmament would be great. And just give them stun guns and a whistle. Look at England. Most of the police officers that beat cops, they don't have guns. They just call the SWAT. If there's even a problem, but. I know I'm a big believer that all citizens should be armed to the gill. We should have, if we wanted to walk around with M60s, that's fine with me. But I don't think we should have a militant force that represents a government that worships Satan, because our government is evil. It's supposed to be bounded on Christian ideals, not on ideals that's based in money. You don't stop someone on the street and say, "Oh, you're in debt," The man obviously was fighting for his life, and they just gunned him down. Immediate capital punishment to this poor black man that has no legs, trying to run for his life. And I feel for his family, and I pray for all of them. It's emotional that the news shows such a thing, but I think they do have to protect the citizens. So the media is there, and if it wasn't for the media in 1940s and even the late 30s and the 1940s in Germany, then that would probably continue to go on for a long time. In America saw the photographs, we saw what's going on. I mean, if Biden doesn't look and see what's going on, then, and he's like, well, we can't really do this. We can't disarm the police. Yeah, we can disarm the police. We can walk over to the police station as a government or we can do it with the pen, and we can walk over with the people that we need to, FBI, whatever it is, and we can sit there and tell the police, you're not allowed to have your guns anymore. Have a good day tomorrow when you no longer have your gun on you. And whenever you tell a citizen to stop and they keep going, and you say stop again and they keep going, keep your 20 feet. I mean, we have, we have a way to, there's things that people can do to protect themselves, especially when it comes to the crippled and people that don't have legs and stuff. What is it so important? I go back and I think of John Bunyan, the guy who wrote Pilgrim's Progress and the Characters of Despair, the married couple that locks up Christian. He has a key of promise, and he's able to leave later with hopeful. And the idea behind this married couple that wants to tear Christian apart. I know there's an institution out there that wants to tear the good apart, but as an institution that's supposed to represent Christ, how is it that we're supposed to just sit there and just, turn away from it and go, oh, well, that's no big deal. It doesn't affect me. It does affect you. I don't see any reform. I see the opposite. I see more aggression, and I see radicalization. I do see despair. I see this institution. I'm not blaming the marriage institution, but I'm blaming the institution that's supposed to be just, tearing apart people and creating evil and despair in people's lives because of too much legalism. What possibly could the black man with no legs and a kitchen knife do to deserve immediate capital punishment, where he looked like he was running for his life? When I saw it on the news just a moment ago, I know, Kitty, calm down. My cat's a werewolf. When I saw it just a moment ago, I saw a man running from his life, or running for safety. He did have, it looks like a kitchen knife, and it looks like he had no legs, and it looks like he was gunned down by a militant force that represents money. It represents legalism, which represents the devil. So we're not going to change until the Messiah comes back, but we have to be aware that we're in this evil. We have to be aware of it. We have to be aware that there's a God. Okay? It's not just good and evil. Kitty, come on. It's not just good and evil. It's about God. And we have to say, well, listen, we're not going to put up with it anymore. We want to live a peaceful life. We want to be left alone. So we have to lessen the legalism. We have to rework all the laws, from everything from, I'm not for capital punishment. Move this over here, Kitty. I'm not for capital punishment. I'm definitely not for that. I'm not for capital punishment. I'm not for capital punishment. I'm not. But I'm not for immediate capital punishment on the sidewalk for someone that doesn't have any legs and is running around with a kitchen knife that's crazy, or someone that's mentally ill. I think those people should be protected. I think those cops should be made example of, so that we can protect the weak and protect God's children. And when I see God's children being slayed down, then it makes me go back and think of the time of the Holocaust and those horrible, horrible times. And if we don't act strict and stern, then it can get out of hand. So what I want to see first is I want to see the police leave the poverty-stricken areas. So move the police from the ghetto to the rich areas, okay? Or what you need to do is move the police to, just somewhere else, and disarm them, and rework the laws. And if there's an issue where there's a sniper or there's a madman running around somewhere, then we'll have a special unit called SWAT. And I didn't see SWAT show up with a SWAT truck and there's no negotiation. The guy was just killed. So we're going backwards, we're not going forward. So if Biden can't immediately stop this, and I say impeach him, bring in a president, not like Gerald Ford, who creates these stupid laws like child support and things, but bring in a president that's kind, so that we can head back to the Renaissance and we can all be jolly and get out of this Gothic period, Bring a president in that's kind and that has Christian morals so we can go back. And we need some kind of police thing where you've got a guy that's in charge, and before they can take their gun out of their holster, they should be able to ask, like permission when it comes to a crippled person or someone in a wheelchair. If it's someone in a wheelchair, they should have to be on the phone with a psychologist saying, listen, there's a guy in a wheelchair. And the psychologist will say, are you a police officer? And yeah, and he says, yes. And he said, well, go find another job, leave him alone, before you end up in prison and then hang up on the police officer. It makes me extremely mad. What we need is psychology, or psychologists say, look, there's such thing as people that are crippled and there's people that are impaired, and just leave them alone. And if they can't, then let's just dish out some death row stuff. See how long they can sit on death row as a militant pig, and see how that feels. That's disgusting. That's the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen in the last, few years. That's absolutely disgusting. We need to revamp the whole entire thing. And I know it's gonna cost a lot. It's gonna affect the feminine aspect of stuff. It's gonna affect domestic. There was a minister that was killed. A minister that was killed for trying to hug the cop. Okay, it's gonna affect the whole feminine aspect of thing. The whole Me Too movement is just gonna be wiped away because of it. Because it's gonna be a vulnerable time for family. And listen, ultimately what it means is that people are just going to have to listen to God. And we're just going to have to restructure the whole idea of how we handcuff people and throw them into the dark prison for not being perfect, okay? Because nobody is perfect. We don't have the money to pay you. If I had the money to pay you, Biden, I would go to your little White House and pay you the money that you want. But I'm telling you, you're not doing anything. And soon there will be a time when a president will come in that has a heart and that is kind. And I'm not necessarily saying that's Trump. I'm not saying, oh, okay, that's going to be Trump. Because we need someone that has kindness, because we're not going to win being mean and all this evil stuff. So I'm not even saying that Trump is going to solve the issue. But we need I'm not going to say the Republicans or the Democrats. We may need a third party, the Libertarian or something. We need somebody that's going to come in and just be kind and use his kindness first. I'm a little upset because I saw a man gunned down on the street that didn't have legs by a militant force that's supposed to represent and protect Americans. That's not protecting Americans. You're insane if you think that your office is working, because it's not. You're not protecting anybody. You're selfish, just like Trump. You care about your own ideals. You care about your own, just whatever it is that you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to regulate. All the laws are corrupt. All law is corrupt. And if you're in law, then you're going to hell, get on your knees and ask for salvation. You're not in law. You're in Christ. There's a difference between being in law, where people suffer in law. See, in Germany, Hitler was in law. It was legal to take a Jewish person and put them on the side of the street and put a bullet through their head. It was perfectly legal. It was by law. By law, you could go and execute a Jewish person in Germany, no problem at all. They'd sign the paperwork. That's legal, sir. Thank you for doing that. That was law. If you're in law, you're going to hell. If you're in Christ, then you pardon the crippled man with no legs and the kitchen knife. So if we can't get in Christ, then we'll find someone to get into office that can be in Christ, so we can get our country in Christ and not in law. That's my multicultural argument.